Hi guys, BellaDonna Black here, and these are 5 verified creepy stories from the subreddit Let's Not Meet. So, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. Number 1. I've shared a not as creepy event that's happened to me, but this particular occurrence never put me in any jeopardy. It was more my neighbours, but creepy nonetheless. Keep in mind that I am unsure of the exact age I was during this series of events, but it took place over a majority of my life thus far, and promptly ended in 2011 when I was about 11. I remember most of these things happening, and my mum has filled me in on some of the details since. Not sure if it belongs in this subreddit, but I really don't ever want to meet this person again. I live in a good neighbourhood in a good city. It was being built when we moved there, but I always remember these 2 young neighbours. Their names were Betty and Jeff. The first interaction I remember having with either of them was when Betty gave my sister and I a whole bunch of McDonald's toys. You know how they display every one of the toys inside? We got one of those displays. I was 5 and my sister was 2, and I remember being ecstatic as any young child would be. My mum later informed me that Betty would tell her that we were the cutest kids in the world, and that she wished she had children like us. Flash forward a few years later, where I'm guessing I'm about 7 or 8. I was hanging out with another girl my age, and was also my neighbour down the street. We left my house, and we were walking to hers. When we got outside, we saw Betty throwing a bunch of Jeff's shit out of the 2nd story window. I vividly remember her screaming profanities as she tossed an old TV set out the window, and smelling cologne that she must have thrown out the window as well. My friend and I rushed to get inside and just thought that she was crazy. Between the age of 8 and 10, Betty and Jeff must have had a few more fights. There's nothing that I can remember, but I do remember my mother telling me that Betty confronted my dad. My dad had been outside doing yard work at about 8:30 or 9 p.m. It was summertime, so the sun was still out, and the kids were still outside yelling and playing. All of a sudden, Betty marched out of her house and straight to my dad. She yelled at him for keeping everyone awake with the sound of a leaf blower, and probably called him a motherfucker a few times. I would understand her anger more if it was dark out, but it still kind of confuses me. Maybe she had a right to be angry. One day, when I was 10, I had returned home from school to the sight of police cars and a bunch of yellow caution tape surrounding Betty and Jeff's house. I ran inside and asked my mum what was happening, but she had no clue. She later found out from my other neighbour that Betty had died, possibly by being thrown down the stairs or something like that. They were trying to figure out if it was self-inflicted or if Jeff had finally lost his shit and killed the crazy bitch. A few days later, I was outside by myself drawing with chalk. As soon as I got outside, I saw Jeff walk over to his glass door. He hadn't been arrested for anything yet, and was still presumed innocent. I thought I had nothing to worry about, so I continued on and retrieved my chalk from the garage. I began to draw when I noticed that Jeff was staring out his door, and staring directly at me. This continued for 10 minutes. I eventually got creeped the fuck out and went to tell my dad. By the time he came outside with me, Jeff had left the door. That's when I realised that maybe Jeff was the batshit crazy one. In April 2011, Jeff was convicted of aggravated murder and sentenced to life in prison, with no chance of parole for 30 years. He gave Betty a fatal dose of antifreeze, and I'm still unsure whether he actually pushed her drugged body down the stairs for good measure. After reading an article on it, Betty claimed that Jeff was very abusive and would not let her do anything without his permission. That would explain her behaviour, but I'm still not completely convinced that she was entirely innocent either. A new couple has since moved into their house. They're completely normal from what I can tell, knock on wood, and we haven't had any murderous events happen on the street since. Number 2. When I was a teenager, I was a goth. Black hair, black clothes, black makeup. even had a pair of combat boots. My friends and I, in typical goth fashion, hung out at the local cemetery. We started going as a joke, but soon discovered we liked the peace we found there. That all changed one night. My friend called to see if I wanted to hang out, and I did. None of our other friends were available. They were either working or recovering from partying the night before, so we were on our own. My friend picked me up and we drove to the cemetery. We were hanging out, smoking, and BSing about the latest issue she was having with her boyfriend when we noticed at the top of the hill we were on, about 100 feet away, a bonfire had been lit. You have to understand that this cemetery is about a block off campus of a major university, and it's not uncommon for college students to go there to party. My friend and I sighed, knowing that we would have to be going soon. It was illegal to be in the cemetery after dark, and we knew the police would show up because some jerks had decided they needed a bonfire. We decided to finish our cigs and then take off. Just then, the most horrible stench came wafting down the hill from the direction of the bonfire. My friend gagged and covered her mouth. I groaned and said, "What the hell?" My friend shook her head, saying, "I don't know what they're doing, let's just leave." We get in the car, and one of us suggested, I honestly don't remember who, maybe we should just go up and see what they're doing. My stomach turned and a cold shiver went through my body. My friend must have had the same feeling, because at the same time we both said, "No, we should leave." My friend turned the car on, switched on her headlights, put the car in reverse, and looked over her shoulder before starting to back up. I was still looking up the hill. A figure stepped in front of the bonfire. I could only see a silhouette, but I was sure whoever it was watching us. A feeling of terror hit me, and I said, "Go, go, go, go," getting louder and more panicking with each word. My friend looked back up the hill for a second, and just as the figure took a step towards us, she slammed on the gas and peeled out, going in reverse down the hill. She rammed the gear shift into drive, and we were out. We didn't say anything for a while, until she said, "What the hell were they burning?" I shook my head. "I don't know." She dropped me off at home and I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up and went out to the kitchen. My mum was there, drinking her morning coffee, and I joined her. We talked about her job for a bit when she suddenly comes out with, "Did you hear what happened last night?" I shrug and say no, I'd just gotten up. She tells me that a woman she worked with was kidnapped from the parking garage. "Oh my God," I said. "Did they find her?" "Yes, but too late," she replies. Whoever took her had raped and murdered her. They found her this morning up in the cemetery. He had tried to dispose of her body in a bonfire. I froze. My brain was going a mile a minute, the realization slowly creeping up. That's what that smell was. Needless to say, I never hung out at the cemetery at night again. I think back to her decision to leave instead of investigating the fire. That one decision could have changed everything. Dark silhouette in the bonfire? Let's not meet. Number 3. I used to work at a security company with a bunch of friends. We all got along well, and most of us even hung out after work. The ones I didn't hang out with kept to themselves. There were 2 brothers that worked nights with me, and they were their own group. They were new to the company and would have many conversations about their guns. Bill was the older brother, and Luke was the younger. After hearing Luke and Bill talk about target shooting so much, I developed an interest. I don't own a single firearm, but my roommate owns several. I mentioned at work one night that I was going shooting in the morning with my roommate, and I needed a good place to go. Well, the 2 brothers pointed out a spot on Google Earth for me, and said it was great, and they have shot up there once before. It was 45 minutes away and higher up in the mountains. I knew this spot precisely due to a single image posted on the coordinates of Google Earth, with used shotgun shells covering the ground. I decided that was a good spot as any and told my roommate Dawn where to drive us. We arrived the next morning at 10 a.m. and parked at the top of the hill. We saw our spot about 150 yards away in a clearing down the valley and began hiking down. On a quick side note, I wore this very bright neon yellow hoodie at work, and during the winter, I'm also a pretty large fella. Being big and brightly coloured makes you very visible from very far away. I've seen hunters using bright colours to avoid accidentally getting shot by other hunters. I decided to wear my trademark bright hoodie on our little hike. We made it a quarter way down the hill and I see a group of fellow target shooters at our desired spot. These were the only other people we had seen in 30 minutes. Our spot is taken. Liam, I said. The second I said Liam, that's when the shit hit the fan. We were on the side of a mountain, walking down towards them, and the rounds started flying. This group was shooting at us. Dawn and I were targets for them, and we didn't have intimate cover. I see Dawn running across the mountain, strafing the shooter. I see what he was running for. It was a small plateau about 20 yards next to us. The sounds of bullets flying inches away from my ears is a sound I will never forget. Movies do not do the sound justice at all, not even close. I still get chills thinking about it now. The vibration and rotation of the bullets chilled my bones. It's not a sound I want to hear again. It made everything go slow-mo and very clear. My adrenaline was kicking in. We made it to cover and hit the dirt. We were pinned down, but we had cover now. I had to have heard at least 100 rounds pass over just the lip of the plateau. I heard a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun. I know I did. The trees, boulders, and mountainsides were being hammered by round after round. If we sat up from our cover, we'd have been shot in the face. These people were shooting up a hill, towards the road. They had their backs to their paper targets. Thinking back on it, my father said I should have yelled down to them to let them know they were shooting at 2 people and to hold their fire. But the thing is, I think they knew they were shooting at us. How could they not? We weren't that far and the mountainside was almost bare. We didn't want to let them know that they were close to hitting us. I should have shot back. We had the high ground, but I'm not a killer. We just waited and listened for their footsteps and wanted them to stay where they were. If we were killed, no one would find our bodies out here. 15 minutes went by and the gunfire didn't let up until it just ended. The mountain was quiet again. After 5 more minutes of silence, we checked down the hill. They were gone. We had our guns ready as we scanned the valley down below. Nothing. No more guys. No vehicle. Just their garbage left behind. We decided this was a great time to get the hell out of the hills. We made it back to our car and back to our house faster than ever. When I went back to work the next shift, I told the story to everyone. I even thanked Bill for the sweet advice. He apologised for the bad locals and said that's crazy. Another co-worker told me Bill and Luke went out shooting the same morning as I did, in the same area. I asked Bill immediately about it, asked him where he went shooting, what guns he had brought to shoot. He pointed out the same damned Google Earth image as before. Luke, his friend and Bill were using a Glock, a .22 rifle and a 12-gauge shotgun. It was all coming together so quickly. I told him he was a psycho and he almost killed us. He denied shooting at us and even changed his mind about where they were shooting. He said it was actually 2 miles west because his GPS was incorrect. I knew he was lying, but what could I do? I had no proof. He worked for me for another 2 years before I moved away, and I never heard from him again. I remember how emotionless he was when he denied shooting at me. He was like a robot. We never spoke of it after the first time. I haven't gone shooting since. So, trigger happy family? Let's not meet again. Number 4. This all took place back in November of last year. I booked an entire trip in order to propose to my then girlfriend. Flew us both out to Florida to go to Disney World, the last concert of one of our favourite bands, and of course, propose. We had a blast. I proposed in the Disney castle. She said yes. Everything went well. We took off the next morning, Thanksgiving Day, on the way home, connecting through San Francisco. By 30 minutes into the flight, the captain comes on the intercom and announces that one of the engines wasn't depressurizing properly. We do loop back to the airport and get unloaded into the terminal as we wait for another plane to be readied. When we get out to the terminal, my now fiancée switched her phone back from airplane mode, and within a minute she had 10 plus voicemails, all from the same number, which she didn't know. Fearing the worst, we called the number without listening to any of the voicemails. I knew something was wrong as soon as she started talking to them. Her face went blank and she didn't say a word. I told her to give me the phone, and she did. I asked who it was, and the voice I heard back just sounded dead. Absolutely no hint of emotion. All he said was, "I will kill you both as soon as you land in Seattle." I asked who he was again, and he just hung up. She said she had no idea who it was, and I certainly didn't know the voice. I called him back, and he would answer and just repeat the time that we were landing. Little did he know we were delayed hours. I used to work in telecom, and I pulled some strings to get a name and address from the phone number that he used. Neither of us knew the name, nor the address. She looked him up on Facebook, and she had one mutual friend with him, her ex-best friend, we'll call her Karen, that she no longer was friends with as she got wrapped up in heavy drug usage and stole from my fiancé. We did a little bit more digging and found out he was the boyfriend of Karen's new best friend. My theory is Karen saw all the posts that my fiancé was posting on social media about the trip, the engagement, and the great time we were having, and she was pissed, and wanted to piss on our parade. I didn't take it as a joke, however. A death threat is a death threat, and in my mind, meth heads, they could follow through with it on a whim. I called him and talked over his rambling and told him I was armed, knew where he lived, and was not afraid to take things into my own hands. He hung up on me, so I called Seattle area law enforcement, and they told me to call back on a non-holiday. So I called the emergency line, and they reiterated the same statement. We were on our own. We ended up flying in close to 9 hours after our original arrival time. Once we landed, we both had a single voicemail. Hers, I assumed, was from the guy, and mine I had no idea, as he hadn't been calling my phone. My voicemail was from my dad. He said he had gotten a call from my neighbours, saying that my mailbox had been destroyed. Looked like it had been hit by a car, and the mail stolen from it. Her voicemail, however, was the guy screaming, "Where are you? How dare you?" and plenty of other threats, and random yelling. I drove home and dropped off my fiancée at her house, insisting she not come with me to my place, in case there was someone still there. They threw a brick through my window with an old picture of my fiancé and Karen attached to it. I tried calling him, to no answer. I went to bed after covering up the window with a tarp and making sure my fiancé was okay. I filed a police report the next day. They said I couldn't do anything by seeing them on my property. We blocked everyone involved in social media and went about our lives. I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks. When he sent me a picture of my fiancée working, I immediately called her and told her to go in the back of her work. I then called mall security and explained the situation, but by the time they got to the food court, where the picture was taken from, he was gone. At this point, I was done messing around. I knew his address and swung by and dropped off a note attached, a critical defense of 40 bullet, saying, "This is your last chance to leave her alone. This is your only warning." It's been almost 9 months now. Haven't heard a word or seen them again. But for both of our sakes, I sincerely hope not to meet you, Tyler. Number 5. No need for a throwaway account. Don't really care. Go ahead and give me a hard time if you want. But I'm Mormon. As many know, we have missionaries, men and women, that go door to door in pairs, sharing a message. They are sent all over the world. The missionaries assigned to my city are girls. The two in the story were both very pretty, young, 19 to 20 years old, and pretty innocent. Often when they went to teach someone, they would ask my brother or myself to accompany them, just in case. They would usually invite us when they felt uneasy about a person, or if it was a single man, as a safety measure. This day was no different than the others. They asked me and my brother if we would go with them to visit a man named Chuck. They said they had met him at a local park and that he seemed nice enough, but just a little off. We of course obliged. They gave us the time and address and asked if we could meet them there. We got to the address. The girls were waiting outside for us. We walked up a steep driveway to the house. As we approached the door, written in permanent marker on the door itself was a message. It says something to the effect of, "This is Chuck's house. Please knock. If I don't answer, call this number." We all laughed. Who the hell does that? We knocked and he opened the door. He seemed very out of breath and was breathing heavily. He was very enthusiastically inviting the girls in. We were about 4 feet behind them. Then he noticed us. His countenance changed immediately. He said, "I thought you two would be coming alone." The answer was a typical, "They come with us from time to time. They're our friends," type answer. He gave us an up and down look and said, "Come on." It was weird. The minute we walked into this dude's house, I felt really weird. This guy's house was immaculate, but the strange thing was, there was no furniture at all. Totally empty. He had 2 bar stools set aside, and that was it. And on every wall in the house was shelving with plants on them, all types of plants, and literally hundreds. Lettuce, spinach, herbs, etc. They were all labelled on the wall in permanent marker. The guy wrote on his walls in marker too. Weird. The girl sat on the bar stools and he sat on the floor. My brother and I stood, and they began their message. By 5 minutes in, he interrupted them. "Oh, I forgot. I made you girls some drinks. Are you thirsty?" They kindly said no, but he insisted. He went in the fridge and got 2 ready prepared drinks out. They had his dirty brown coloured liquid in them. It looked like muddy water. He said that he had made them for them earlier in the day. He didn't have one for him, but for us. Just the 2 girls. He handed them the glasses and then just stood there and stared, waiting for them to drink. I immediately felt like this was a bad idea, and I could see that my brother and the girls were equally uncomfortable. They made awkward conversation, and I signalled to them that we should go. They cut themselves short, and we left. He was visibly upset and kept telling us to come back whenever we wanted. When we got to the driveway, we got in our cars, and I told the girls to come over to my house. At my house, I told them that they probably shouldn't go back, and they agreed. I knew Chuck's last name. It was on his frickin' door in Sharpie, for heaven's sake, and I did some quick googling. Homeboy was released from a police department in California for general reasoning and admitted to a psych ward for over a year. They didn't say why, but there was a whole newspaper written up on it. I don't know what his intentions were, but there were too many weird places for me to want to see him again. Hehe, creepy drink-making Sharpie writing Chuck? Let's not meet. Ever. Hi guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel. You can also check out my Facebook page and my Twitter. Both links will be found in the description below.